Hey, how you doing? Hey, so this is Admin from PlexGuide. So this is the version 3 video for the introduction. So my goal now is to kind of start focusing more on these videos and getting these wikis up to par, basically because we're starting to stabilize a lot of the changes. So I appreciate, first of all, you coming visiting our site, and second of all, for actually watching this video. Um, this project originally was just an obsession in order to, like many of you, to get your Plex media straight. I owned over 76 terabytes of hard drives. I wasn't a Linux user and I used all Windows, and the situation just came complicated. So, as many of you, you've probably used Expand Drive, you've used, what is it? There's Expand Drive, Google File Stream, Net Drive, if you're on Windows. Some of you probably used, there's just so many different products out there. There was like another one that made like a pool. You probably know what I'm talking about. There's some kind of like pool program. But anyways, a lot of these solutions didn't work because they were just like too slow. And then another problem I have was just making one massive drive. So the question is like, first of all, why would you use PlexGuide? So PlexGuide is basically a very simple program to use, mostly. So because it's Linux. And when I originally started this project, I didn't know a lick of Linux. What I did was I started documenting everything. So when I started documenting everything, I tried to understand what I was trying to do. So let me pull up the document for a quick second so you can see it. Just stand by. All right, long wait that was, wasn't it? So anyways, this right here is the actual original PlexGuide. So I did buy the PlexGuide domain. I did have a document. It just basically just pointed to this. And the reason is I just tried to start to document some of this stuff. And as I looked through it, I was just like, oh my God, now that I looked through it, it's kind of like archaic. But the purpose is like so you could figure out what you could do. But if you start to notice here, there's like a series of commands, right? So there's like certain things we started to do. And so what we did was myself and DQ, she was one of the original co-founders. We started to, start to code out the project because it's like, wait, can't we just build a script to kind of execute this stuff in order? And the problem what we started to run into with PlexGuide is that PlexGuide, um, there's a lot of variations in PlexGuide. So the coding was important because myself, I didn't understand all the different variations that existed out there with Linux, like, what the difference was between Ubuntu server and regular. I didn't understand that certain VPS providers actually have certain dependencies installed and some don't. So what we tried to do is we tried to standardize as much as we could. Just to give you a little bit more insight here, this is kind of like PlexGuide version 2. So you can see here is that we started to take all of that stuff, and the programming we started to do was PlexGuide version 3. So 1 was the document, 2 is this, and you could tell that a lot of the work we did was done way beforehand because there's some other projects out there, but we did a lot of our research. So you can say, hey, here's the IP address, hey, here's how to deploy this. So don't want to kill you with this. But PlexGuide 3 was an early attempt to get the script going. PlexGuide 4 ran everything as root, so that's not a good thing. If you're new to Linux, imagine running everything as a super user. That's not a good thing. And then PlexGuide 5 started more of this interface, but it was a lot of blue menus. And then PlexGuide 6, it was basically a major rewrite. So if most of you watch there is an install video that does show you how to install PlexGuide. So if you do, all you have to do is go to install PlexGuide, and basically it'll give you the information on how to install it. So most of you that are watching this video are most likely here, or you just came directly across it on YouTube. So what I'm trying to get at here is just like, I'm going to give you some basic information because this is just an introduction video. So I'm going to give you a little bit of everything. So it's up to you if you want to continue to watch or not. And I'm going to start streamlining this. So again, I gave you the purpose of PlexGuide. It's basically, it's going to deploy a mass multimedia server for you using Docker and Ansible. If you don't understand any of those two terminologies, it's okay. Some of you may understand virtual machines like VMware Fusion. Basically, you're making pretend machines. And if you haven't used VMware Fusion or VirtualBox or OpenStack, the concept of a virtual machine is a little elusive. So long story short, a virtual machine is a pretend computer. The computer thinks it's real because it's assigned resources. What's even better is that there's a thing called Docker. So if I type Docker, Docker PS, you'll see that there's actual containers running. And what happens is instead of installing these programs to your machine, because you're like, well, I don't need PlexGuide, I can just install Plex and all this stuff directly to your machine. That's cool, But what you'll start to realize is that you'll start running into a thing called dependency hell. So you have to install all of these things to make everything up and going, and it's a nightmare to do that. So if some of you install Plex on a Linux box, you'll realize that there's like a crazy long path. You know, you're just typing endlessly in order to get to, right? Well, with PlexGuide, all your data is actually centralized in one location. So first of all, let me show you this. Because one thing I noticed is a lot of people don't know where the data is stored. So anytime you're running all of these containers, any data that is outputted that is critical for us to utilize will be stored at this location. So you'll type cd op app data as you see above, and it'll take you here. And then if you want to see what's there, you can type lsla, and you can see that those are the folders right there. So you see how they're generated? So there's SIG running, sonar beta. So anytime you launch these containers, it's going to create a standardized folder for you. It's going to set all the permissions for you. It's going to do all this correctly for you, because that was a problem. That was something that I struggle with. So if I take this and I put it as, you know, root, and, you know, certain people can't write to it, well, sonar beta is not going to work. So if I go to sonar beta, you'll be able to see some of the information in there. See? So right now all it is an MP4 automator. If I go cd, let's back out, and we go to SIG, type lsla, you can see that there's data that it generates. See? So it just depends on the program. So all your data is standardized in one location. The reason that's great is because guess what? When you execute PlexGuide and you do a backup and a restore, all the data is in one location. It can easily restore it. When you install all these programs via native Linux, well, good luck, because the data is just all over the damn place. So that's one thing it saves you on. This is Ansible right here. So this took me a while to wrap around, but some of you have seen Bash programming, which is scripts, and some of you have seen Python. If you haven't seen Python, it's okay. But what Ansible is basically like kind of like an in-between that I've utilized, to make everything execute. So basically, if I pull up Atom here and we look at one of these scripts, a YML, this is what Ansible looks like. It's formatted a certain way, and if you notice right here, it's executing certain things in order. So this is the name, a condition, prompt this, output that. So if we want to see what, let's say the start menu, right? You'll notice it coming up. So you'll notice this right here. Yeah, this is fun. So, and the good thing about Ansible is it will yell at you if something's wrong. And there's a reason why I have all the output shown, because we have a few of our users like, hey, can you hide the output? Originally, that's what PlexGuide 5 was striving to do, but we realized it was a bad idea, because if anything is jacked up, you're able to copy and paste and put on our forms. And look at this, bam. You see how it just comes up? It's just like that menu right there. But if you notice, it executed a series of commands: addition, server ID, domain, and you notice it's pulling different things. If this is this, is this is this. So it's a good in-between. And actually, Ansible is actually built off Python. So right now, as of now, I would say in this October 2018 timeframe, right now we're using Ansible 2.5. 2.6 is out, but what I've learned from PlexGuide 5, PlexGuide 5 is stick to what works. That's an important key for Linux. 2.5 works until I need to progress to 2.6, so don't get obsessed about installing certain things that don't need to be installed. Okay, so you notice that PlexGuide provides your user interface and menu. Again, if you watch your install video, you got to see how the whole thing installs and what it does. Right now, this is what it looks like loaded up. So, for example, like let's say we want to deploy a program. Remember how we was talking about those containers? So let's deploy a container that's not here. So let's deploy netdata. So this is all you have to do. This is what PlexGuide does. You're like, hey, just type this, press enter, just sit back and relax. And PlexGuide is very adaptable, meaning that you can install it on a virtual machine, you can install it on a dedicated machine, you can install it on the VPS, and we've made multiple additions for you. See, so there's the IP address. Right now I have no domain set up, but if there was a domain, that's what it will tell you. So right now it's telling me to go to port 1999. So let's go ahead and pull this up. And then we'll type 192, 192, 168, 168, 1.201, and 1999. And that's it. So you notice that it was just that easy to execute a program. So you're like, damn, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah, no, it is, ain't it? So check this out. Let's say we do, let's say we want to deploy, let's say something we don't have to deploy here. Let's try couch potato. Now this is something I don't use. This is kind of more seen as a legacy program. Radar has been kind of leading the way on movie content, but again, this is just a demo. So if you look at these commands here, it's been executing a series of things like, does this directory exist? Is there an override? So what I've tried to do is I've tried to standardize as much of the stuff as I could. Before, the program was independent for each program, but now it uses like what some people call a function or some kind of standardized template in order to execute a lot of this stuff. So you can see that it's doing additional stuff compared to net data. So it's because it's generating the INI file for the first time. You see, it's like, hey, turn on dark theme, turn off black hole, do X, Y, and Z, and then bring couch potato back up. So here it comes, and then here it is. It's asking for backups. You notice on net data didn't ask you for backups. So again, flexibility. So yes, we're going to do a backup. We can say, hey, we want to do this daily, and we're going to say that we're going to want this, the 22nd hour of the day, and there's our 50/50 to access it. So if I go here and we go 50/50, and that's it. The dark theme, everything came up. So your life is a lot easier. And we've turned certain things off and certain things on for you to make things a little bit easier. So this is where PlexGuide is going to help you a lot. And again, I do apologize if this is a lot of different information, or if you maybe know some of this. But it's just to kind of give you a quick taste of a little bit of everything. Because there are going to be a series of videos you're going to have to follow for something, some guides. It's apparent when you don't, because when you come on and you're like, hey, this isn't working, it's like, hey, did you follow the NZB Git wiki? So there you can see that we basically executed a series of programs. So we've even set up this isn't the installer, but we've even set up a Google GCE feeder edition. So you can launch a Google container, and guess what? We link it all for you. We make life easy for you. So you can build a container. So we're not going to get too much in this. If you're going to watch the installer video, the second half of it actually has a lot of what we go through in these menus. So you notice that PlexGuide provides you a lot of flexibility, and that's it. If you want to see where PlexGuide is located, it's going to be cd op app data, not app data, PlexGuide. And there it is. So every time you install it, it goes here. Now here's a question some people ask. If I update or go to PG Edge or install it for the first time, what happens to PlexGuide? Long story short, I basically came up with my own system. I'm a little bit lazy, right? But I'm not one of these like Linux gurus who likes to just type like git checkout, git check-in, and pull, and give you a series of random instructions for you to download. Because it's always common in all these projects. It's like download, git clone this, do this, chmod this. It's too much stuff. The harder it is for the user to utilize, the harder it is for, well, actually the more mistakes you'll make, and the more complicated it gets. And plus, you probably don't want to utilize the projects that you see. So what happens is, like, let's say we type PG update, right? And this is using Ansible for it. Same concept that we were talking about earlier. You see, it's going to give you a series of versions that you're going to be able to pull from. And where these versions are located they're going to be located under, definitely not here. So there's all these releases. See? So there's 6072. What I do is I filter out some that I know that are either problematic or old. So we've had to require everybody to go to 6.065 for the installer to be updated. But other than that, you'll see like, okay, we'll type 6072. And that's basically it. So long story short, you didn't see it, but it deleted the old version. It did a git pull and pulled it for you. And look at this. You just type PlexGuide and it will bring a version for you. See, 6072. Same thing again. We go PG update, bring it up again, and we'll do 6071. And sometimes, depending on the versions you go on, you may see some prompts, because certain versions will require you to install something specifically based on it. So it looks like 6071's getting there. You go. So that's all you got to do. Basically, PlexGuide erases itself and goes from there. Now, the question you may have too is like, well, what happens to all my data? Remember that op data we was talking about in the beginning? This doesn't get touched. This stays in its own area. So I know we're talking about the use of these Docker containers, right? So there's going to be a program you're going to be able to use called Portainer. So what we do is we install that as standard as part of your PlexGuide suite. So we're going to go ahead and type up Portainer will be port 9000. And not now, because it's just a local. And you can see that these are all the things that are running. So if I type docker ps, those are all the same things running. So the great thing about Portainer in here is, again, gives you like a GUI, kind of like an interface of all your programs running. You'll notice here on the right side that there's ports. And you're like, well, why is there 2 ports? I don't really get that. It took me a while to wrap my head around, but if you notice here, RuTorrent wants port 80. And guess what? Heimdall wants port 80. And guess what Traffic is running on? Port 80. So you're like, how do I do all this stuff? What Docker does, it does like kind of like port translation. So if we want to see Heimdall, we'll go to 111. So just to kind of give you an idea in the code here, and again, this could be a little off tangent video, but again, this is an introduction for you. So see right there, that's all I said. See, so I'm like, and remember we was talking about setting up that data. See, app data Heimdall. See, so that's how your data ends up there. But you could see that in Portainer, it all reflects. If you ever want to go inside of a container to see how you see everything, you can. All of them don't do it, but some of them do. So like, let's say you were having problems with, I don't know if you can do sonar. I think you can. So, but you see this little command prompt thingy? What you should do is you should enter as 1000. The reason I say that is because that's how everything's executed on your box, not root. So sometimes people are like, hey, I'm getting a permission error. Looks like you can't get into this one. But there's some containers that I can get into that will help me see how the container can see everything. There you go. So you see Couch Potato, if I type LSLA, I have nothing like this on my system. So this is my system here, watch. I'll type cd app Couch Potato, right? It doesn't exist. So everything's running in this container. So it's, like I said, it's its own virtual container. Couch Potato sees all of this. This is why these containers work perfectly. It's because they execute things with their own environment. So if I go to cd/lsla, you'll notice that there's a bunch of files here that I don't have. So lsla, cd lsla, and you notice here these don't line up. So there's some things, but you'll notice that there's some folders like UnionFS. Why does that matter? Because if you look at Couch Potato, we exposed UnionFS to it. See, so UnionFS, there you go. See, UnionFS. Because when you deploy PlexGuide, UnionFS is your merged drive that basically has, like, you know, your Google Drive, your Team Drive, and your local all mounted together. So if I type, you know, if I go to UnionFS, see, this is, remember how I said this is a real? So if I go to cd UnionFS, it won't work because that's not it. But I do have it here. That's where that translation piece comes in. So, and again, I'm just showing you this because I just want you to understand this just a little bit. See that Mount UnionFS? On the left side, this is my computer. On the right side is how I want Portainer to interpret this. So that's why if I go here, I can see it. So watch this. I'm going to type, let's see, LSLA. See? And so those are the same folders there. So basically, Portainer is like a virtual, not Portainer, but the Docker containers are like virtual containers that exist. Ansible helps us execute all that stuff for checking purposes, and, well, the bash scripts help us with some of the stuff that we have. So that's basically all PlexGuide really is. It's a series of bash scripts, Ansible, and Docker containers. And it's a lot of containers, a lot of code and everything. So if you look at our GitHub page, let's see here. If you look at our GitHub page here, you'll notice that there's just a butt whack of commits right here. So if you don't understand GitHub and all this stuff, just think of this as 16,000 changes. So that's how much this project has, and 50 contributors. So there's a lot of people that we actually personally have to thank for this project existing. And again, this is a group project. Yes, I do have to manage it, but I try to be as flexible as I can be on the site because I built PlexGuide as though it's for the new user that doesn't understand Linux. Because when I built this, I didn't understand a crap of Linux. And if you go to Reddit and you ask people like, hey, how does this work? People are pretty much a-holes. So we set all this up to make your life easy. If you notice that you came to PlexGuide, there's there's a forum, and as of right now, we got like 3,700 members. So I noticed you see a ton of people are just signing up. So either word of mouth, Google links. So I'm glad that people are doing it. And again, this site is not a moneymaker at all. So it basically helps, like when people donate, it does cover like, you know, form cost, the licensing. So for example, like this form software is 135. Then I got to pay a yearly fee. This module right here alone is 90. I even had to pay for the donation module. Obviously, you got to buy this computer. So there's a lot of things that this community's help with. So people either contributed foes, they either contributed funds, they either contributed tech support. So there's a lot of contributions or code. So you can see here we have like over 10,000 messages. So you can see that there's a lot of discussion. And I don't know everything. So I'm glad I have members here that attempt to assist me with all this. So you can see here that our form is pretty streamlined. So you can see I got a coder, and you know, we got donors, so, and we got members. So, and again, it doesn't matter what your role is here. We're just glad to have our members here. Okay, so you understand how a little bit of PlexGuide works. You understand just a little bit of code, and there's some translation going on. You understand that GitHub is very involved in order to make this project. It's an open source project. So I really can say what else was important. Obviously the wiki. So if you click the wiki, there's gonna be a lot of information here for you. So like if you're like, oh, you know, what's Google Feeder Edition? You know, you click here and you read about it, and you can find out a lot of good information. Also, there is a PlexGuide YouTube series channel. So if you obviously you're watching this video, this is part of it. But you could see that, you know, you can click one of these videos and just learn to your heart's content about anything and everything. And I do apologize, I do keep some of the older videos here. Some people do learn some stuff from them. But over time, we're going to try to continue updating these videos. So, you know, check out the videos, check out the wiki. All of it's important. Check out the forum. You know, feel free to fork the project. So we do how-to guides on how to understand how Linux works a little bit. I think that's pretty much it. So you saw PlexGuide executing. Maybe one thing I can mention is talking about these drives, because some people do have questions about that. So people were like, okay, so how does my content get to my Google Drive? Well, let's go to CD mount and let's look at what's really important here. So the main drives is G drive and T drive and decrypt, but we don't really use encryption. So most people will probably install PlexGuide with the Move edition. So what happens is Move, the reason it's called Move is because when I first started PlexGuide, it was the original location where, well, stuff gathered up and moved. So, you know, I wish I had it as like local or something, but if you go to Move, anything that's here, I can't spell today, anything that ends up here, LSLA, is, you know, this is, and these are just generic folders, but anything that ends up here is what ends up to your Google Drive. You're like, well, so when let's say you set up NZB Git or whatever, do you point it to mount move? No. The reason is because what happens is mount move doesn't have all your stuff from Google Drive. Remember Sonar, Radar, LiDAR, they want to see what you actually have in order to compare. So whatever you don't have, it knows to download. So if you point it to mount move, it's going to be a bad day for you, because all your stuff is going to go local, doesn't go anywhere, and your stuff from Google Drive never, yeah, just bad idea. So the thing is, all your stuff is originally going to go to is Mount Union FS right here. So this is this. So if I go Mount Union FS, and again, this is just a blank demo because there's nothing in here. What Union FS is, it's a Mirage, Shadow, merged, whatever kind of drive you want to mention it. So if I type N Union FS, this means nano. Crap, I don't have it deployed. So again, because it's demo box. But if you take Union FS, what it's going to do is it's going to merge your G drive, your T drive, if you do use T drive, and it's going to mount your and move, and it's going to mount them. It's going to not mount them, but it's going to merge them all together. So if you have something in your Google Drive and you have something in your Team Drive, and you go to CD Mount Union FS, all right? If you have A in Google Drive and B in Team Drive, it's all going to show up. So other than that, I do appreciate your time. Yeah, again, this is just, you know, a random introduction video. Yeah, please feel free to subscribe or like the video. Check out our other videos. Any information that you put, comments, let PlexGuide be known, because again, the more people that we get, the more people that we come across that either have useful information or contribute via code or anything else. Because again, this is not something that can be done by one person. And like I said, this was what my vision for PlexGuide was, and that's where it went. And then it kind of blew up from there, and now it's just endless. But I enjoy the project because it's just great. It's been a great experience to learn everything. So, and as of right now, I say my coding experience is about like 14 months. Stop, Gavin. You have a good time. Thanks. Bye.